Hi everybody, my name's Luke. Thanks for joining me today. It's amazing to see so many other people here who care about animals. I only wish the animals could see how much support they actually have. Unfortunately, a lot of them will never know, but we're all here, we're trying our best. So yeah, about me, I've been vegan since 1997. 1997 was a time when there wasn't really that many options. In Coles, I remember there just being sanitary and veggie dogs, a couple of types of tofu, and there was only a couple of vegan restaurants. There was Veggie and Lovin' It, which still exists on Rundle Street, and there was a little place called Sprouts, which was a little bit more high-end. Veganism wasn't really recognised back in 1997. It wasn't very common that you could go into a restaurant and actually say, I want something vegan, and them actually know what you were talking about. So it's pretty amazing now. Nearly everywhere you go, you can actually say the word vegan and people have some idea what you're on about. I spend a lot of my time volunteering with Sea Shepherd over the last few years in a few different sanctuaries. I also monitor the live export massacre down in Port Adelaide because I live quite close to there. There's actually some ships down there at the moment, and they're there constantly right in our backyard. I also spend a lot of time doing a podcast and running my not-for-profit project, the Vegan Alliance. So what got me into veganism? I went vegan because of music. I was a young punk rock kid. I loved loud, heavy music, and I really took the time to read the lyrics of bands that I liked, and I only really listened to bands that actually had some lyrics with a little bit of meaning. One band that really stood out for me and really changed me was a band called Earth Crisis. If anyone's heard my podcast, it's the outro music. It's quite loud. It's probably not everybody's cup of tea, but this band meant everything to me and basically shaped me into the person that I am today. They were my introduction into veganism, but they were anything but subtle. They were loud, angry, and they were dedicated to spawning a new generation of vegan warriors and animal rights activists. They sang about the misery and the suffering of animals, and they got straight to the point. Something they said that really made me think was the following lyric: "Don't let your outrage for injustice end where your selfishness begins." If you let that sink in for a second, it makes a lot of sense, because everybody's outraged by injustice, but then as soon as it comes to something that impacts them or having to change their ways a little bit, they don't want any part of it, or they just ignore it. So these kind of lyrics pose some pretty serious questions for me. They were the reason I became unapologetic and wanted to tell the truth about animal agriculture and factory farming. I was only 17 years old at the time, so that was some pretty heavy stuff, but it set me on my path and made me realize I could no longer contribute to the suffering of animals, and I had to be a voice for them. So 20 years on, I'm still here. Once I made the connection, I started thinking a lot about how animals were suffering just so I could eat. And I put myself in their place and realized that veganism was the only choice. It was a really hard-hitting wake-up call that music gave me, but it's the key to being the person that I am today. So today, I want to talk about empathy and how vital it is in making the connection. Empathy really helped me make the connection. The definition of empathy: the ability to understand and share the feelings of another, or the capacity to place oneself in the position of another. Anyone can be vegan, but to stay vegan is another thing. To stay vegan, we need to know why we're vegan. Simply being vegan without thought can have a limited lifespan. So why is that? There's a real difference between a vegan diet and a vegan lifestyle. Someone who follows a vegan diet might not like the idea of animals being harmed. They might like the food, or that maybe they just want to be healthy. But without actually knowing what animals go through and putting themselves in the animal's position and understanding how they suffer, a vegan diet can be pretty easily revoked. Those who follow a vegan lifestyle, they know empathy. Veganism's easy when you understand what's at stake, but in order to understand, we need to face the truth. And the truth's not pretty. I've always been upfront about being vegan. If any of you follow me on social media, I don't always share the nicest stuff, but the stuff I share is real. Over 700 million animals die in Australia every single year. Animal agriculture is a leading cause of deforestation, habitat loss, extinctions, soil degradation, water pollution, and greenhouse gas emissions. Meat is a really inefficient way to feed the Earth's human population. A huge amount of plant protein is lost and water wasted to produce much smaller amounts of animal protein. Veganism isn't a belief. Animals are dying, the planet's dying, we should make better choices. That is not a belief, that is a fact. All types of education can work, and certain approaches might work for certain people, but not everyone's comfortable sharing confronting images and information. If you're speaking for the animals, however that is, that's all you need to do. But at some point, the truth needs to be shared by someone. So maybe you're asking what my point is today. Once I decided to speak up, I faced a lot of backlash. You're forcing your belief down other people's throats. You need to respect other people's choices. You're too aggressive and confronting. And from a lot of other vegans, your methods are turning people away from veganism. That honestly couldn't be further from the truth. For every one negative comment I get 10 positive ones, and not just from vegans. I get them from those who have made the connection from something I've said. Those who were once violently opposed to me come back and they tell me that they get it. That perhaps I pissed them off at the start, but now they're vegan, and something I said helped them make the connection. When someone witnesses the suffering of an animal, it hits a nerve that needs to be struck. It imprints an image in their mind that they'll never forget. Something that they can't forget, and it makes veganism the only option. It's not because it tastes nice, it's not because it's trendy, it's because if you're not vegan, you're contributing to the suffering and death of innocent beings who deserve to live. Any decent person who has the ability to empathize does not want to take part in that. I could just post pictures of my smoothie bowl or happy lambs in sanctuaries, that's fine, but it's not going to strike that nerve that's going to hit home the absolute urgency of the situation animals are faced with. If we were to ask an animal how they would like us to educate others, and we gave them two options. First one, take your time, don't upset anybody, and just lead by example. Or the second option, tell the truth, shout it loud, and let them know that we're being abused, tortured, and murdered every single day. What option do you think the cow, the pig, or the sheep standing in the chute, watching their comrades scream while having their throat slit, would choose, knowing that in a few moments they would be the ones that are screaming? We don't have time to mess around. We need to speak openly, confidently, and truthfully about animal rights. Seeing the brutal images and hearing those screams and the sad reality of the plight of the animals is the key to a vegan world. And right now we live in a non-vegan world. We live in a world where animal abuse in certain forms is acceptable. It's actually normal even. It's kind of considered abnormal to not support it, which is bizarre. Someone who doesn't want to support animal abuse and they choose a vegan lifestyle, they're mocked, ridiculed, and made to feel like it's all a big joke and they're a little bit weird. Yet, if we oppose the slaughter of dogs in New Lynn, the killing of whales in the Southern Ocean, or the poaching of elephants in Africa, we get a big pat on the back and be commended for our efforts. The reason people laugh is because they feel guilty. Most know that inflicting unnecessary suffering is morally wrong, but we're conditioned since birth to think killing some animals is normal and some is animal abuse. When you become vegan, you wake up. You see things very, very differently. We see the chicken in the supermarket as someone. We see the steak on someone's plate eating opposite us as someone. And the smell of bacon, to me, that's the smell of death, sickness, suffering, and sadness. These responses to otherwise normal things are because we empathize. You see it for what it is, as someone. And when you see someone, you put yourself in their shoes, or their mother's shoes, or their siblings' shoes, and you want absolutely no part in it. Because none of us would ever want to fill those shoes. Once we wake up, we're faced with some pretty challenging situations. We want to tell everyone, we want to stop the slaughter immediately, but how do we do it and do it effectively without losing friends and pushing people away? A lot of people tell you to do your thing, but let others do theirs. In other words, to be a vegan, but be passive, to keep your opinions to yourself so you don't upset anybody. We all live in a free country. Everyone has the right to an opinion, and I'm sure you've all heard the rest before. But they're not really opinions, are they? These are facts we're dealing with. Animals are dying for our food. Baby calves are being stolen from their mothers. Just so we can drink their milk, baby male chicks are ground up alive because they're no use to the egg industry. The sad fact is, a lot of vegans are made to feel like they can't say anything confronting or challenging to others. But this is exactly what we need to do. Nearly all of us used to eat meat and animal products. Through education, compassion, empathy, we stopped, and so can others. But we need to make sure that we stay vegan, and the way to do that is to know the truth. I wouldn't say I've lost friends by being vegan, but I would say because of my relentless fight for animals, that people have distanced themselves from me. Not everyone, but some of my old friends no longer contact me or support me. Veganism has helped me make a lot of new friends who understand. We share similar ideals and values, and we don't all agree with each other's approaches, and that's okay. As I said, everybody have different things work for different people, and we can still all be friends even if our methods aren't all exactly the same. But the way I do things works for me, and I get great results. I'm not the type of person who can just sit by and shut my mouth and let animals die. So how can we be upfront and challenge social norms in regards to food consumption and the use of animal products, but get a message across truthfully without constantly arguing or fighting with others? This is something I've learned to be better and better at as the years go by. I've always been furious about what we do to animals. It makes me so mad that sometimes I just want to scream. And at times, my approach has definitely reflected that. I've been overly assertive, I've guilt-tripped people, I've shamed others who don't see what I see. But as time's gone on, I started to see what's really effective. And instead, I realized we need to align with people, because once upon a time, we were in their shoes too. We hadn't made that connection to what was on our plate and the fact that animals had suffered for it. And that's okay. It's totally okay to not know. But once you know, you can't unknow. Aligning with someone without anger or aggression tends to diffuse a fight, and it can lead to a pretty intelligent conversation. You can't argue with someone that isn't arguing back. With this in mind, we can share challenging images, information, and we can engage others to get a positive outcome and a response. And at the same time, we can help them absorb the reality of the situation. This has helped me share the things I share. It's allowed me to show slaughterhouse footage and run them all without it ending in a fight. Nowadays, most interactions I have, if engaged correctly, lead to a great conversation and actually lead to helping people make the connection. A quick story to back this up. On my Vegan Alliance Facebook page about 6 months ago, I shared some animal abuse footage, and the usual trolls sort of came out with all their comments, the usual ones like bacon or eat some meat, you weak, whatever word you want to put in there. Pictures of meat on spits, I get them quite regularly. Animals having their heads chopped off. I get sent this stuff all the time. One guy was particularly bad, and he called me all sorts of names, but it was okay because I was used to this, but it's never nice. So I replied with some informed responses, and I tried to keep it civil. After a while, the guy got a little bit tiring, and I said, just go away and watch Earthlings and get back to me. It was about 2 days later he got back to me and he said, hey man, I watched that film and it's horrible. I think I'm going to try and be vegan. And I was blown away. The guy had done a full 180 and he'd actually absorbed the information I'd given to him. So we chatted for a few weeks and I helped him make the transition. And he actually now defends me on Facebook against people that he was once like. So you got to do things the way that you feel comfortable. And if that fire burns inside of you like it does me, and you channel it properly, you'll have an amazing outlet to let off steam, to let go of anger, and at the same time help others understand what animals are going through day in, day out. You don't have to hold back. Just remember to align with others and be honest. You're not an extremist, as some people would say, for showing or sharing animal cruelty, as The thing that's really extreme is what we do to animals. You're just a vessel to relay that information. Nothing we are doing, nothing anyone here is doing, nothing anyone advocating for animals is extreme at all. Have you ever wondered why people who are so opposed to actually witnessing where their food comes from, is there a reason the slaughterhouses are far away and hidden from us all? Maybe it's because what happens inside those walls is far too hard for the average human to comprehend. That's why it's vital we get this footage and the images out without being afraid of backlash. If it's so horrible to everyone, surely once it sinks in and they're faced with it as a reality, they'll seriously reconsider their food choices and where they put their money. It's funny how everyone's okay to support animal abuse and murder, yet if you dare show it or talk about it, you're forcing your beliefs down their throat. I feel like every day we have ideas and agendas pushed down our throat to eat meat, dairy and eggs. The TV's littered with advertisements. The streets are lined with shops showcasing animal parts. Every bus stop has a fast food marketing campaign on it to try and get you to eat the latest piece of flesh creation that miraculously doesn't look like it ever came from a living, breathing being. Because if it did, no one would eat it. You're doing nothing wrong by speaking up for animals. Speaking up for animals definitely takes a little courage to speak openly, but we can all do it. I wasn't always confident. In fact, a lot of things still make me nervous. Like this speech today in front of you all. But once we do it a few times, we'll see how effective and satisfying it can be to help others make the connection. I don't believe there's any heroes in animal rights. No animal rights activists you know are any more capable than you. We all started out because we all had the same fears and anxieties, but because we had the urge to be a voice for this 56 billion land animals and the trillions of marine life, we got out there and did something about it. Knowing that animals are suffering at the hands of human beings every year is just too much to not speak up. We need to help others feel the same empathy towards animals that we kill for food as they already feel for human beings, dogs, cats, and other animals that they love. This will spawn a new breed of vegans who give up animal products just because it's the right thing to do. They'll understand the suffering, they will feel the fear, and consuming the flesh of an animal that died in pain will no longer be an option. This can only be done if we know what we're contributing to. It's all too easy to give up if we do it for any other reason than for the animals who suffer every single day because we find it too difficult to cut their suffering out of our lives. Thank you.